Hello everyone, welcome back to the This Is Me podcast. I'm Karen.
And I'm Ellie, and today we have Brenda with us. So,
after a long career in HR and as a certified executive coach, Brenda decided it was time for a new chapter. She went back to study recently, completing a master's in nutritional therapy and lifestyle medicine. A passionate advocate for midlife as a time of growth and reinvention, she now wants to help others, especially women, take charge of their well-being and have the confidence to follow a path that brings purpose and fulfillment no matter their age.
Brenda, first off, thank you for joining us. And to kick us off, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your story and how you sort of got to where you are now?
Well, hi Ellie and Karen. First of all, thanks so much for inviting me on to the podcast. This is obviously my first foray into podcasting, so it feels a real privilege, but it's a bit daunting at the same time as well, I will say that. So, gosh, my story. I think where I'll start is that I had quite a sort of humble upbringing. I was born in the early 70s and grew up in a mining village just outside of Glasgow, so sort of grew up through the miners' strike and everything that went with that. So really quite a sort of humble upbringing, the eldest of three children. And then I guess I was the first in the family to go to university, which at the time felt like quite a big deal, but actually for me it wasn't as positive an experience as I thought it might be. And I think that on reflection now, when I think about that time, which is quite a sort of vulnerable time for me actually, because my eldest child's just about to go there, is that actually it wasn't the experience that I thought it might be. And I think a couple of things that contributed to that was that in Scotland, it tends to be that you go to university in Scotland and you live at home as well. So you don't have that sort of experience of growing up and meeting new people and going to freshers week and living in halls and all those sorts of things that kind of bring you together. But also I was one of the sort of youngest in the year. So I went to uni when I was really young. I went when I was 17. And I think I just wasn't ready for it. I felt really overwhelmed. I was living at home. I didn't really make any friends outside of my friends from school that went to university. So even though I had a really good network of friends, they were sort of outside of that university kind of environment. So I kind of went because I was supposed to, and that's what was expected, but the experience wasn't really a positive one for me, and certainly living at home makes it a different experience as well. So I think the theme for me probably throughout this podcast is I'd probably describe myself as a bit of a late developer because I've kind of, feel like I grow up behind everybody else and I find myself after everybody else as well. So it takes me a while to catch up, I suppose, because I didn't actually move out of the family home until I was 23. I shared a bedroom with my sister till I was 23. And then I got a job on a retail graduate scheme, and that's the first time that I'd lived away from home and I moved out. So that was like a massive change from, being closeted in that family environment to suddenly, not living at home, having a full-time job, working in retail and the pressures that came with that, and suddenly kind of having to fend for myself and stand up for myself and be on my own 2 feet. But I actually think that has helped me because I think that, I'd always worked. I'd worked since I was 13. So, I've always known the meaning of work and the value of work, and knowing that working hard is kind of certainly the way I was brought up was you had to work hard to get anything in life. Nothing was ever handed to you in a plate. So when I started working, it was, I did work really hard. I was very diligent. I did what I was told. I've never made a fuss, was never offset, I guess like the perfect employee, kind of always done what was asked. And then sort of a year after I started working, maybe 18 months after I started working, I then moved from Scotland to Leeds because the Asda head office was there, which is was the company I worked for, and that's when I met Karen actually. And then that again was a massive change. Karen's laughing.
Oh, you came into the strangest environment ever. If you look back now, don't you?
Yeah,
like,
I know.
You look back now, it was we were so like we really wound you up all the time. It was like, you know, because she was the new kid on the block.
I never knew any different, so it was just like, you know, really exciting, living in a new city, and I think I almost had those university years then, if that
I was
makes
going to
sense.
ask, yeah.
So, you know, made loads of new friends, was going out every night, you know, really like living the dream. I had a fantastic time. You know, I really did enjoy myself through sort of my 20s. My 20s were really, you know, an important time for me to kind of, I suppose, grow up and, you know, find out who I thought I was at that time. But I think, you know, in terms of the story, I never really knew what I wanted to do. I think opportunities happened to me rather than me seek them out. And actually, through my career in Asda, I actually, you know, progressed quite quickly and ended up in fairly senior positions without really trying to get there. I think it was just, you know, either I'd probably say circumstantial or luck. It's probably hard work, but you know, nevertheless, you know, I managed to forge quite a you know, a good career. But then it all changed again, and I think it changed because I met my husband, and we got married, and then I had 3 children, but I had my children in really quick succession. So I had 3 children under the age of 4, and I miscarried in amongst all of that.
Oh, God.
With no family support around us at all. Finding myself in a, you know, a reasonably senior position, working full time, and it was just a really difficult time because at that time, and I'd like to think it's different now, but the environment that I was in just didn't feel supportive of working mothers. And, you know, I got to the stage where I felt like I was sort of subcontracting out my life to pay, you know, a horrendous amount of money in childcare, to feel like I wasn't really being a good mum, but also that I wasn't really delivering at work either. And I think the narrative about who you are and what you're capable of at work also kind of started to change, where all of a sudden somebody who was seen as having potential, suddenly that potential was being capped, and nothing had changed other than the fact that I'd had children and I'd had maternity leaves, as I kept getting reminded of about, God, you've done well out of the maternity leave policy. Like, have I?
I think you got 3 kids under 4.
Yeah.
Done really well.
Haven't you done well? You know, and you know, things like, and so it's strange when I look back now, because I think I've always, not less so now, but certainly then, I kind of have a tendency to make myself small and make myself not make a fuss and just be, you know, very grateful for everything that I get, and grateful to get promoted and grateful to, you know, just have a job. And I think, you know, to be honest, I was like literally on the edge. I was living on the edge of, you know, getting the 6:15 train every morning, not getting home till 8 o'clock at night. Me and my husband constantly having that tussle and around actually who's picking up, who's dropping off. And then I tried to keep my kids really separate from my work life, because it was almost like a weakness if you had like a picture of your children on your desk. And then I'd get little comments from people around, I don't know how she does it when she's got 3 kids. It must be really hard for you to actually deliver at work. And those little insidious comments that just, you know, I wasn't giving off that vibe, but I was being kind of, I suppose, put in a box of not sure she's quite up to it anymore. Does that, like, you're nodding, Karen, do you like recognise some of that?
100%. It's like one of the things that has really become like clear to me personally. I had that anyway. As soon as you're in a senior position and you have a child, you are off every conceivable succession plan, and you know, whatever you do, however you project it, the male narrative has already decided, oh, that's a shame. Do you know, like they don't, and even now we do a lot of work with, you know, like younger women, and it's still happening today, and it's outrageous. And one of the things that Elle and I do with this is we do a lot of work on identity, because when you have children, when you have a trauma, it's not just children. You change, and within you, you are a totally different person. But the world wants to see you as Brenda, who is the high-flying, successful, funny, diligent person. But inside, you're like a broken person. Like you don't know who you are. And I think there does come a tension. And I think what we've seen is that people either carry on, and get burnt out, or they make extreme decisions to move, because it's the person. I was talking to somebody this morning, and I was saying to her, I know you've got to think about the money, but you've got to think about your mental health. And I just think I personally think that nothing's really changed. I remember when I was promoted at Asda to a senior manager. So Ellie, when in Asda you were a senior manager, and it was like the bee's knees, wasn't it? You got a great car allowance, and you're a senior manager, and we had an amazing boss at the time, and I had Laura. And she was really supportive, and she didn't have children, but I went back part-time, and I thought it was great. But I look back now, and I was not part-time. I did 100 days in 3. And I got promoted to be a senior manager. And I was told, not by her, but by another woman, I couldn't tell anybody about it. I couldn't tell anybody about being promoted. And I just think that was unfortunately, 30 years ago that was.
What was going to happen when you started the job? Were people just not going to find out? Well,
they did, because you know what? Back in the day, they would ask you what your car was, because that told them what grade you were.
Right. Okay.
But I guess where I'm coming from, where my passion comes from, and my anger, is that nothing's changed in 30 years. It's just more covert, I think.
I wonder as well, because I don't have any children, and I've never been in corporate, in a corporate environment. And I wonder, not to say that it's not happening, because I think it is. And I was just having a conversation with another one of my friends who desperately wants to leave her job, but has got really good maternity leave. She's having her own journey with that, but she's so terrified about leaving her job because of the benefits of the maternity leave. Anyway, distracted. What I was going to say is, it's coming from everyone else, but do you think as well that it's like an internal expectation that you're like, shit, can I do, but do you understand what I can't get any of my words.
I think you're right. I think it's both. I think it is both, potentially, around, actually you've got far more plates to juggle, your priorities change. You're trying to establish yourself as a parent, as well as still have this veneer of being a good employee who's delivering an outcome as well. So I do think it's both. But I also feel like if I'd had my time again in that space, I would have been much more assertive around actually what I could and couldn't do. And I think, maybe the workplace environment around flexibility and things like that is, I would hope that that's better than it certainly wasn't, back then. But I think that, you can just, I think women who are in senior posts with children, even now, to Karen's point, I think it's tricky.
Yeah,
it's tricky to manage it all. So
I had the conversation this morning. It was exactly what you were saying, and this person was going back for her. She's going back in 3 months, and she was meeting the boss, who's the MD, and she was talking to me about the flexibility, because as a mum, when you're going back, that's so important to you, because you're riddled with guilt and things like that. And I was like sort of saying to her, you need to just step back first. Don't mention that, because that's what they're expecting, and they will say, oh, she's come back and she wants to leave early, and there's this whole game we have to play as women about not being able to go and have an honest conversation with the boss and saying, I really need to leave to get the train. And they should say, that's great. But it's like a game of words. It's awful. It's
what
really
I
awful.
can't really understand is how it, and I don't doubt that it's still like that. It probably doesn't look exactly the same, but there will be the same. It will be the same thing under a different guise, won't it? And I just think, but how? How is that still the case? How is that still going on when it's not new? Not like people have been having children since the dawn of time, literally. And how are we still in this you know, like people being like, oh no, I can't get approved for flexible work. And you think, what do you mean? Like, this is absolutely ridiculous.
It's
I'm
because you've
not
got
sure
such
what
a
my
good
point
boss.
Yeah,
I'm not
it's
sure what my
hard.
point
It's
was.
hard.
No, it's hard to comprehend, isn't it, when it just is illogical, and
Yeah,
it
I
only
know.
it only leads you to the fact, which is like a really, I don't know when I'm going to say this. This is a really big statement, but that there is really, really systemic discrimination for women. There is, and should we be honest enough to say, yeah, there is, and change the way we work, or should we invest? I'm really interested to hear what you did next, but should we like stand up and step forward and try and change it? Is like, because it is quite hard work. But how did you deal with it then? So you were at work with 3 children under 4, no pictures of your kids.
Yeah, all
Power
that.
suit. Did you have your power suit?
Obviously had a waistcoat on. Yeah.
Bright red lipstick.
Yeah, yes, all that.
Good to
I mean,
hear.
I think how I dealt with it was that I needed to make a change for myself and for my own mental health and for the good of my family. So I took a career break from Asda the year before my youngest daughter went to school, and then I was made redundant from Asda whilst I was on my career break. So that, I guess, the decision was made in many ways, but actually that was quite, in all honesty, I'm not sure I'd have gone back from the career break anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, it kind of circumstances prevailed, and actually
made the choice for you.
Exactly. But then I think my driving passion then was just about, I need to work part-time. That's what I need to do, because that will just, and I don't want to hold a position that's as senior as I held either. Because at the same time, whilst my career was starting to plateau, my husband's career was increasing in terms of the level of responsibility that he had as well. So, you know, there was that kind of, you know, that juggle was becoming more and more uncomfortable. So by me working part-time and by me having a less senior post, that just worked for us and worked for our family. So I did that for a few years, moved jobs a couple of times, and then I suppose that takes us up to just before, well, no, in fact, during lockdown. And I was at that point, I was holding another sort of fairly senior position in HR in an SME. And I think this is where, you know, we often talk, I know we've talked about this before, Karen, but, you know, you think about your values, your personal values and what's important to you. And I think the older that I've got, those values have become more and more pronounced, where I can't deny them. So, you know, the business that I was working for, unfortunately, it started to just feel a little bit uncomfortable in terms of my personal values alignment with that business. And that was for, you know, various reasons, but because I held this sort of the most senior post in HR, that discomfort for me just wasn't tolerable. So I took the decision to leave there with a bit of I'm just going to take a breath and decide what I want to do. Because I think I was also falling more and more out of love with HR and everything that sat around that. And I think that sort of coincided with a similar time to lockdown. So there was a few things where lockdown was a bit of a circuit breaker for me, really, in terms of my life, my lifestyle, my job, what I wanted out of the second half of my life. I turned 50. There was all those things that all sort of
I just got to say,
coincided
never.
at
You're
once.
not 50. No way, you 50.
God,
La,
I'm
la,
older
la,
than,
la,
I'm
la.
older than that now, Karen, I know. So there was a few things it was a bit of a circuit breaker for me around actually, right, what do you want? You know, you get to write the story on this. What is it that you want to do? So before I'd left the previous company I was in, I'd done an executive coaching program at Henley Business School, which I really enjoyed. And when I was doing all this sort of, you know, the client side work with that, a lot of the solution that would, or I guess the identifying what the barriers were for a lot of the clients who were in sort of senior positions was around lifestyle, because they were working so hard, they were being burned, they were burning out, they didn't, weren't doing any exercise, they were surviving on Mars bars and coffee. There was that whole kind of, the job was everything, and who they were and their lifestyle and their health was kind of deprioritized. And actually, I felt like, even though I was then qualified as an executive coach, I felt like there's more that I could do around supporting that kind of well-being side of things. And I'd made a few changes for my own well-being as well. And I think some of that was driven by going through menopause. So, for example, I stopped drinking, which was, at the time, I suppose it did feel like quite a big decision, and it was never a decision that was, this is forever, but I just felt like it wasn't serving me, and that, that brain fog and that just kind of anxiety and all those sorts of feelings that were coming up, I just felt like, particularly during lockdown, because every night was a Saturday night in lockdown, wasn't it? Where actually I need to kind of just take a break. And so I did, so I stopped drinking, but I also weirdly joined a running club. And I had always done a little bit of running since I'd had the children, never done any exercise before. But joined a running club and suddenly discovered that actually I was quite good at running. So that culminated in when I was...
Your Olympic gold medal.
Not quite. But what I did do was it does make me giggle, this does make me laugh, because I'm Scottish. But I ended up qualifying for an England vest to run the marathon.
Wow.
Really? How did that go down in the family?
I mean, terribly, obviously.
Yeah.
Which was
You know Ellie's dad's Scottish, don't you? So Ellie feels your pain.
All that side of the family are Scottish, so I do know very
Yeah.
first-hand experience of the England-Scotland divide.
My family were horrified, literally horrified. I mean, what I will say in my defence is Scotland don't do an equivalent of this, surprisingly enough. So, so there was just a few things.
That's amazing.
From a self-esteem perspective, it's like that actually. There's life in the old dog yet. When you turn 50, this isn't the end. It could be the start. So I've really got quite obsessive now, I have to say, about running. Yeah, I mean, how long have you got? But,
I think that's therapy.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's good for your head, isn't it, as much as anything else? But there was just, a few things that were sort of happening where I thought, actually, there is life in the old dog yet. Midlife can be a place of opportunity and of making change for yourself and do what makes you happy. So I then... The decision about what was I going to do was that I ended up doing a master's in nutritional therapy and lifestyle medicine, which nearly broke me because it was so bloody hard. And it was
I did a master's in 2017 and it nearly broke me too.
I mean,
oh my god, I couldn't write properly. So.
It was the science that did for me, but it was also it was like a trial year of doing a master's in a year. So it ended up being 14 months because of the dissertation, but nevertheless, it was a full-time job and more. And it was a real, I thought it would be tricky, but I didn't realise just how much of a challenge it would be. So I did that, met a whole new circle of friends. I think my whole circle was changing anyway, because actually, one of the things I learned about myself, I guess, having stopped drinking, was that I wasn't really the extrovert I thought I was. I think I'm actually much more of an introvert. So that was a bit of a realisation. And I think your point, Karen, around when we spoke before about, finding your tribe. My tribe, unintentionally, I suppose, started to change to become a bit smaller, quite a bit smaller actually, but with people who were much more like-minded and much more aligned in terms of my, shared values and kind of what's important and what isn't important. So I feel like that sort of, since I've turned 50, there's probably been more material change for me than maybe in the past 10 years kind of put together, albeit the kids have been growing up and things like that. But do you know what I mean? Like for me personally, around who I am and what I want from my life. So I suppose that now brings me up to where I'm at now, which is, I've got this master's. I want to try and make a go of supporting women in the workplace, particularly
Awesome.
women at midlife. And whether that is in a sort of coaching capacity or it's through these new skills that I've learned in nutritional therapy and lifestyle medicine about, supporting it's a very holistic kind of,
Yeah.
I suppose, intervention around helping, women, or helping anybody really, be the best version of themselves and do what makes them happy.
Yeah.
And, and not being apologetic for that either.
No.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I was going to ask you is, so when did you finish your master's?
January this year.
Yeah. And had you thought, as you were going through it, that this is where you wanted to like spend your time and invest your time, or had you been thinking about that for ages, like this combination of coach and nutritional coach and that, or?
Not really. I think it's been a bit of an evolution really around,
Right.
I just knew I was interested in it.
Right.
And I knew that, I've got all these sort of things going on in my head about you've got 25 years plus experience in HR. You've got
I
this.
thought you were going to say left till you die. I thought that's
Honestly,
good.
so did I, and I was like, don't write yourself off, Brenda, bloody hell.
A friend, somebody we worked with at ASDA, I won't mention who it was, told us when we were at ASDA, I don't know whether you remember it, how many weekends he thought he had left in his life.
God, no,
Christ.
no.
I thought you were going to say I've got 25 years left. I was hurrah.
So did I.
What's your secret?
Yeah. Well, as we know, that none of that's guaranteed, is there?
No.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
so I guess, did I have a definite plan about I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that? No, I didn't. And I think that goes back to the kind of earlier point around things that kind of happened to me rather than me make them happen for myself. But, it was very intentional to do this master's, but I think it was with the kind of backdrop of you'll be able to make something of this. But that whole kind of what does this look like is still emerging, I suppose. And I'm
So
very
what are you
fortunate.
finding most challenging with it then? Because it's I came to my self-employment through a similar, because I think a lot of times you make big so my sort of challenge in life is a lot of people make big decisions when they've had a trauma, whatever that trauma might be like. So you're choosing something usually to get away from something so significant. And I went to self-employment because I had breast cancer, and I would never ever have done it. And I remember that probably the first 4 years I was so out my depth because I'd pivoted into it without any preparation. So one of the things that Elle and I are really keen to do is provide help for people who are thinking about it before they have to do it. But I just remember being really scared about not having a salary because she used to. So that was my biggest thing. And then the other thing which I hated was sales. So what are the big fears that you're having about it? Because I think it really helps other women to understand that that's natural. It's it's natural to be frightened of things.
Yeah, and it is all that. There is that. I'd like to say that I've got this newfound sense of confidence and I know exactly what I want to do, but I haven't. That imposter syndrome is real. We did do a lot of sort of reflective writing, which I hated at the time, but actually is probably quite helpful when I was doing my master's around that, that imposter syndrome and being a mature student and all the things that kind of go with that.
Sorry.
And I think I've still got a bit of that imposter syndrome around, who's going to want to listen to me? What can where can I add value? But, it is that piece around actually, well, first of all, what other people think of me is none of my business. But second of all, I'm not that important. So people are not, all this airtime people are giving to thinking about me, it's like, that's just not happening, is it? So, but I think of this first few months of the year, I've been a bit like, well, I've got loads to offer, I'm just going to sit here and wait for this work to come. And I think I've had this realization about actually that isn't how it works. You've got to go out there and you've got to, extend your network. I've got a great network already. I just haven't utilised it. And, I think the bit that's hard is around, so what is my proposition? What is it that I have got to offer? And I think the more that I sort of let that percolate, it is that point around midlife, and those sort of changes that happen, and in everybody's life, but particularly in a woman's life, those life stages, and around menopause is a massive change for women, but it's a natural biological transition that will happen to everybody, and it's not an illness, and actually there is life at the end of it, and actually you're postmenopausal for the rest of your life, so you best get used to it,
Exactly.
and think about what does that actually mean for you. So I am scared, and I think I am very fortunate in as much as I've got a very supportive husband who is supporting me to help work that out, but I do have that kind of gremlin on my shoulder around. I've got 3 kids, who are probably going to go to university. My eldest son's going. I want to feel like I'm earning and contributing to society and making a difference, and all those sorts of things. So maybe if you asked me in 6 months' time, I might have a different story to tell you.
I think that one of the things that I've learned, which I think is an important lesson, sometimes you can get like really overtaken by the need to have your USP, have your proposition, have your marketing plan. But actually, one of the things that you've got, which I think is really important, particularly with the work Ellie and I do, is we don't know a lot of people that take that holistic approach to nutrition and well-being. We work with loads of holistic well-being, and you'll hear some of that on the podcast, like hypnotherapists, Reiki people, psychics, anything in the world that makes people feel better. And we also know a lot of exercise people, but they're very different people, and there's not a lot of people that bring that together. So I think that your storytelling for me is really gonna attract the people that really get it. And we've done it all the time, haven't we, Ellie, when we've been doing our many iterations of this business? We'll employ somebody to do our brand proposition. And you're like, what? So I think, I guess my sort of advice is sort of almost step into that space. Your story is amazing. And do the bare minimum because
I think that's a really good point. I know what you say. Like, yeah, okay, the work isn't. You do have to go and do it, and the work isn't going to show up at your front door.
Come to me.
Why is it not coming to me already?
But I also think that if it's something that you're passionate, it's less likely to go away because you're passionate about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's, if you couldn't care less about it, then it's probably not going to happen. But if you've got that drive of no, I enjoy doing this, and like with your kids as well, I just think for them to see you have like trust in yourself to go, no, I'm going to give this a go, and whatever happens is going to happen, right? But that in and of itself will be a good enough lesson for them to go, well, she didn't know what was going to happen, and she didn't know what it looked like, and she did it anyway.
She stepped in.
Yeah, and I think that's, you can't play that down. Like,
and that's a really interesting point, that, Ellie, because actually it's because I'm going to university open days at the moment with my middle daughter, and my son hopefully is going to university this year. We were at university open day at the weekend, and they put a big slide up saying, do what interests you. And I thought that is really poignant. Like, it all ends of the sort of spectrum around, I wish somebody had said that to me when I was going to university, about do what interests you, don't do what's expected of you, or what you think is expected of you, or what's going to earn you the most money. Do something you're passionate about, do something you enjoy, and things will work themselves
when
out.
you're having a bad day, like we do a lot of work with mental toughness, which is about like how you deal with challenges and stresses. So it's slightly different to resilience, because it's about that building challenge into your life. And mentally tough people, if they've got a passion and a purpose, because it's without having a purpose, your passion sometimes is a distractor, isn't it? They get up, and they'll get up. Like, if you think about the bad days you've had and the bad days we've all had, like it makes you get up because you really believe in it. And that is like accounts for something like a 25% difference in productivity and aspiration and well-being. But the only thing I was going to say as a thought is, I think that the work we do, I think there's a lot of women who aren't in midlife that really need this sort of help. I don't know what you think, Albert. I think
even in preparation for that, because sorry, and I will sorry for jumping in there. I
That's
can't
all right.
believe how little we know about like how little it's the menopause and going through the menopause and perimenopause and post. Cannot believe how little. Like, and I still know like this much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I
it
know one
is.
ever talks
I
about it, and
agree.
then like, oh yeah, crazy. Sorry, Karen. I know you'll
No,
have got me
no,
a question
So
now as
true.
well.
I think it's a great question, Al. You give yourself a few years yet, though.
Thank you. Yeah.
But I think that one of the things I think is I'd be really interested to ask you, and I have like I don't know what I have about this. I think that when you're doing something that you're going to do, and my profession, I do coaching psychology, so it's the same. I think you have a massive responsibility for the people you're taking on, like ethically and that. What's your thoughts about all the menopause coaches and the menopause, it's like online courses about the menopause, and
Yeah, I
it
know.
really worries me.
Yeah, I mean, it is the Wild West out there because it's
Yeah.
unregulated, isn't it? And
And
yeah,
ADHD coaches, they're
yeah,
really stressing me out at the minute. And it's almost. I think you were saying earlier about. I know we weren't on the podcast about your youngest, about the commercial. If people see something and they see it's a trend, it's like, oh,
yeah,
I'm going to have a bit of that. But it's people's lives you're dealing with, because
yeah.
all
Yeah.
these things are really important, and it really worries me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And certainly everything that I have done is all, as you would expect to be regulated. But
Yeah,
when you
evidence
look
based. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, it is all evidence-based. It's not a replacement for medical advice. It's about, helping with imbalances, but it's all, heavily regulated, as it should be as well,
Yeah.
because there
Yeah.
is no, I mean, look at the supplement market. There's take this magic menopause pill, and that belly fat will just fall away. It's
What is it?
anxiety, brain fog. Take this pill, it's all gone.
Take
And
this pill.
but this is what's been
It's
Yeah.
awful.
marketed. And
Yeah.
there's, having gone through menopause, I think I went through it reasonably early. And it's interesting what you say earlier about not knowing anything about it. I was absolutely mortified when they
Clueless.
told me I was menopausal. So I was like, I'm only 45. How dare you?
Mm-hmm.
How can I be menopausal?
I've got to
'Cause
win the Olympics yet.
yeah. Well, it made me think, like, it's all that narrative, isn't it, around over the hill,
Who
old,
Yeah.
you are, it's your identity.
yeah, you're not useful anymore.
Yeah.
All those kind of
Your
negative
ovaries are
connotations.
shrinking.
Yeah,
Your ovaries are
you're,
shrinking.
you've done your duty to society because you can no longer procreate,
Yeah.
so you're not useful to anybody. And that was some of the kind of noise that was in my head around, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
that's it then.
I maybe, yeah, past it, yeah.
But yeah, I might as well just, fade into the background because I'm
Yeah.
not of any use to society. And I think a lot of women feel like that. I think they feel redundant in many ways. And, the menopause symptoms don't help in as much as, because of that fluctuation in your hormones, that brain fog, that fatigue, that achy bones, the sleepless nights, the hot sweats, they're all symptoms of changes in our hormonal profile. So when you're feeling a bit rubbish about it anyway, that weight gain round the middle, becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy if you're not careful, where,
Mm-hmm.
it is trying to sort of catch it before it catches you, and you're
Yeah.
kind of, you fade away.
Yeah.
I was only 45, and I
Yeah.
was mortified. I was like, how can I be menopausal at 45?
No,
It's
you
like,
wouldn't. You because you
I'm a
don't
late developer.
associate it. Yeah.
I'm 20 years behind everybody else. I need to be
Yes.
65.
Yes, this is not acceptable. But when I first, because I rarely go to the doctor, when I first went to the doctor, I was getting diagnosed with depression, anxiety, all those sorts of things, and it wasn't that wasn't what was happening. It was menopause. That's
Wow.
what was happening. But I don't know what the statistic is, but there is so many menopausal or perimenopausal women that are prescribed antidepressants
Yeah, a few
when
of
they
my friends were
shouldn't
with
be.
anxiety and anxiousness.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, mine was really different because I had chemotherapy. I had the full everything. I didn't know which was the symptom, so I I don't know. Mine was really different because it just
Well, it's
it
brought
happened
on
like
for
that.
you then.
Brought on for you, but because of the stuff. But so in a way, I never really lived with it because I was living with a different coping with cancer. Does that make sense? It was never
absolutely.
anything that was in my head because I was dealing with mortality.
Yeah,
as such,
no, and it's like you say, like, how do you know? You can't go, oh God, bloody hell, the menopause, when you haven't actually got a clue what side
No, I thought I
I
decided that I was just not going to give any symptom any power.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, because what I learned, and this is I think what you're saying, Brenda, is people define you as something. Yeah, like, so like they define, oh, you have cancer, you need to go and do, I was telling Elle about this the other day, you have to go and do a step class with the other people that have got cancer. Why? And when you don't behave like that, again, I was telling Elle about this.
That's who you identify with.
My Macmillan nurses couldn't cope with me because I wasn't behaving how I should have behaved. And I think there's a real need for, one of the reasons we call this Women of Our Time is we didn't want it to be women of this, women of retail, women of health, women runners, women. We wanted it to be that actually you are you. Don't categorize and label us as this, because in this society, that's who you become. That's what's, And so we wanted Women of Our Time to be, we're all here connected, because actually we're all put in boxes. You said when you become a working mom, when you've got the menopause, when you're perimenopause, when you've got cancer, when somebody's, like when you've had all these, when you've been made redundant, all these things, people then say, oh, you should behave like that.
Yeah.
And women more than men do behave like that. So my rant's over, but I think we have to break the narrative, and I think it's amazing what you're doing, because I think we have to break that narrative, and people have to see people like you and say, oh my God, Brenda speaks a lot of sense. And she's an Olympic athlete. It's really funny. I keep saying to my husband, Mike, I think I could do archery. There's a lot of old people do archery in the Olympics. And I really, really want to be in the Olympics. Mike said your eyesight's shaped.
Listen, don't write yourself off just yet.
I might see if I can do that for Scotland.
Yeah.
Sorry to distract. It's a whole different conversation you could have about it, and I love that there's women whose voices can be heard that can start to change the narratives in a slow sort of way.
It's changing the narrative, isn't it? And I think sometimes it's changing the narrative for yourself as well.
Yeah.
It's the stories you tell ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's
that's all that matters.
It's just a story. It's a story that's, wait, is that true? Where's the evidence that tells you that's true? So, that this bit around, as I, have this kind of imposter syndrome going round around, well, who's going to want to listen to you? Like, what value can you add? It's like, well, is that true? Who has told me you've got nothing to say that's of any value? Nobody has. And it's just not giving these words any power over you, isn't it? I think it is that just kind of, being, I suppose, being diligent and mindful of that, and saying, acknowledging that it's a thought, but it's not real.
Yeah, and it is, and I think that it's like, it is, you do have to work at like being mindful of it, and you do have to work at almost counteracting what it's saying, because it is like, it's no use saying it's going to go away. It probably isn't, but you have to work really hard to try and say the exact opposite of it.
We use that little spiral emoji, like when you're like, I'll send Ellie, are you spiraling? And we do that little, because I think one of the things I learned through my experience was I tried to pretend I was okay. I was waiting for a diagnosis or an appointment. And then in the end I thought, I am really scared. Do you know, I've got 2 young kids. I've got to go and do this. So what I learned was fear is natural. Fear, as Ellie said, you just have to make sure fear doesn't come out like a Pandora's box. But fear is something that's really real. And you shouldn't have to pretend you're not frightened, or people want you to be normal. It's not a weakness. And so that made me feel better when I just thought, do you know what? You're always going to be frightened before these checks, but you're not going to be frightened for 4 months. And I think, and it's real because something that's frightening you is impacting your survival. And so that's okay. So, but Ellie's right. And all these, like we've done a lot of studies of stuff, and all these self-help things. Do you imagine you're floating above I remember somebody saying that to me. Imagine you're floating above when you're waiting for, you think you have no idea what I'm thinking. So I think we need real practical things that work for that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think they've got. I think all of that has got its place, and I think it's all really. I do think it's really useful, and it has saved me on more than one occasion.
Yeah, that's a
But
fair
when
point,
you've
Alex.
lost the- No, but I don't mean that. I just mean, but when you've lost the
No,
plot,
it's a good challenge.
and when you've spiraled, it's a little bit pointless because you've lost the plot. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, but we've gone down a rabbit hole here, and I'm not sure how we got
I'm
here.
losing the plot.
Yeah, we are losing. We're spiraling clearly.
So inspiring.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question there. It's to go back to sort of what you were saying at the beginning. Moving, I know, sorry, this is a bit of a throwback, but moving out of your family home in your 20s to a different, I know it's only down the road, but to a different country in a completely different environment, that must have been, talking of fear, that must have been terrifying.
Yeah, but you know what? It wasn't at the time because it kind of happened by accident, really.
Right.
I kind of was very naively just jumped on the train and went for an interview and then got offered the job and I thought, all right, well, that's it. And I think initially it was a maternity leave cover, actually, the job that I was doing. So it felt like it was bookended anyway. I was going to go get some experience in, head office and then come back. Beyond that, I hadn't really thought any more of it. And I think, circumstances prevailed that, however many 30 odd years later, I'm still here. But I think it's kind of those decisions that you make in the moment, like what those decisions then mean for your life and for the rest of your life are actually, it's sliding doors moments, isn't it? So I think I was ready though, Ellie, because I think that I did feel a bit like, a caged beast a bit around, actually, I need to spread my wings a bit. I mean, I was still sharing a bedroom with my sister. That's probably not normal, is it? Let's face it.
I wouldn't like to comment, but it's old.
Yes, but I didn't, we didn't know any different.
No.
It was just, I'd never lived away from home, so it's so bizarre now, because if I thought if my kids were staying at home till they were 23, you think that's really quite strange.
Well, they never go away, is what I would say.
Going away and coming back, maybe, but having never gone. So I think I was quite immature, and I think that bit about, back to my late developer, I think I didn't have enough of the kind of worry of the what ifs to kind of be too concerned.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Why.
I think what I've really enjoyed about what you've said, and to be honest with you, in a way, most of the people that we've had on have sort of had a similar thing. Is I think I sometimes am like, but it's really helpful for people to know, so what did you do next? How did you, step by step, how did you get where you were? But I think for a lot of people, it is that sort of sliding doors thing. It's you've got a rough plan of sort of maybe what you'd like to do, but actually it's sort of what presents itself and what you where you put yourself for things to present itself. And it, without having a better way to describe it, it does seem to just happen to a lot of people. And I don't mean it they just show up one day. There's a lot of hard work behind that. There's no denying that whatsoever. But I do think that it's important that people hear that it doesn't have to be this, okay, step one on Monday, I will do this, sort of situation.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that, I think the voiceover in my head is just very much about trust the process, and it will, however it's meant to be, will be what happens. But at the same time, you do have to, have some sort of at least a sort of broad outlook around actually what you think you want to do or get.
Even if it's, I really don't want to do that. Do you know, even if it's knowing what you don't want to do, you've always been adamant, haven't you, Elle? You had a stint earning some money before you travelled in, let's not name the company, but you've never wanted to be in a corporate. And Ellie, you had real issues, didn't you, about I'm different, I haven't got this career path. Do you remember what am I going to do? But you've never wanted to, have you?
No, I've never wanted to, but I also like I did struggle as well because everyone, that's what everyone around me was doing. So I was a bit like panicked and like, oh God, like everyone else is doing this and I should be doing this. But I'm going to be really, it was never, ever, ever, ever going to work for me, even if I was in it. Like,
No, it wasn't. No.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's amazing. So
Yeah,
I think there's a
absolutely.
lot. One of the things that I'm really interested in is like about intuition and how it's like being stifled, because intuition is your internal radar, isn't it? And we've like, because I think you're both right. You should, when you see that pathway, I was a bit like you. We were in a company that was great. I had like about 25 million different jobs, and I loved most of them, and I never felt they were wasted years. But I did come out of it when I eventually left Asda and thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't know how I've got here and I don't know what I've done. So there's something for like guidance for people throughout it. But there's also something about, right, when you're presented with that, trust your gut, trust your instinct, you know, like have the, even if it is, I do not want to do that. And I think that we need to help people on that pathway. I think particularly women who are stepping from like junior manager to senior manager, I think there's a lot of help we need to give them in that side. You know, I've got two girls, Ellie and Anna, you know, my nieces, and like, you know, like you want them to have the greatest opportunity because they're going to be the future leaders of this bloody country, Eleanor.
Yeah, and I think like
Way to the world.
I think that's like another thing that you can hear in your story as well, Brenda, is like almost getting pushed to the point of like, you know, if you didn't choose to leave when you left and choose to do what, then you know, like what would have happened to you then? Like, you know, mentally, like everything, like you, like,
it's not.
I mean, I think
can't think about it.
I think what it has equipped me with, though, is, you know, I'm very resilient. And I think, you know, that's something that's kind of carried me through for good or for bad. But I think what, you know, getting to midlife, I think you do know yourself better than you did when you were younger, just because you've got the benefit of having lived with yourself a bit longer and having that experience. And I, you know, my tolerance levels about what I am prepared to do and what I'm not prepared to do, and the clarity on that is much stronger as well. So, you know, what I want to do is, you know, in this second half, second mountain, whatever it is that you want to call it, is, you know, be of service, do something that makes me happy, but where I can support other people, that's aligned to my values, makes me happy, and makes me feel like I'm making a positive contribution in whatever form that looks like as well. So, you know, that is evolving, but that's what I want for myself, and I know that I will get that in whichever way, shape, or form that is. But it's you know, it is scary. It's scary doing something new, and because I could, you know, I mean, maybe not tomorrow, but I feel like if I wanted to get, you know, back climbing that greasy ladder in the, you know, HR world, I could walk into a job tomorrow if I really wanted that for me. And I don't want that for me, and that's okay. And I feel good about that because I feel empowered to have made that decision about actually that's not going to serve me anymore, and that's not what I want to do. And that's, you know, that feels positive and good to be able to say that out loud.
Yeah, it is, because you know, loads of people either won't even let themselves think about it, or would be, you know, rightly too scared and too secure in the positions that they were in to just go, no, I'm not going to do it. And I do, like, it takes a lot of courage, I think, to go, I'm going to do what I want to do here. Yeah. Okay, this has been brilliant. So thank you very much for sharing your story with us. Just, we've got one final question for you.
Oh God, yes.
And you know what it is.
I know what it is.
If you had to choose a song to be the theme song for your life, whether that be overall or just for the time being, what would it be?
It's been quite hard, this, really, because there's different songs at different times in your life that mean something, but the one that I kept coming back to, and it kind of makes me feel a little bit emotional when I think about it, is Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles.
Oh, nice.
Nice, yeah.
Love that song, and
Mm-hmm.
it just feels like it's one of those songs, because it's really old. Every time it just comes on the radio randomly, it always feels like it's come on at the right time for me.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it just feels like a positive song that, tomorrow will be another day, the
Yeah.
sun will shine, the sun will
Mm-hmm.
rise. There's a lot of metaphors that I take
I
from
might
it.
cry, actually. I needed to hear that today.
Yeah, you did need to hear that today, didn't you?
did.
No, it's a lovely song. It gets me in my heart every time I hear it. So,
Mm-hmm.
we had it on our wedding video, and that was, it's a change in another change in your life, and things to
Mm-hmm.
come, and when the kids were born, so so that's the song that means something to me.
I was reminiscing about
brilliant.
your wedding the other day. That vague memories of it. 'Cause that's
Long time
lovely, isn't it?
ago.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
that's been brilliant. Thank you so much, Brenda.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
for
thank
Yeah,
making
you.
I
That
hope
was
you enjoyed
amazing.
it. I
Yeah.
hope
it
you
easier for me
Yeah.
than I thought it would be.
good.
It's been a
I'm
pleasure.
glad. Oh, no, brilliant. And thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will speak to you next time. Bye.